Hey y'all, I hope you're doing well today. So in today's message, we're going to be talking about the unconscious part of the human psyche. We're going to be talking about being transparent, how people will try and cover their tracks, what it means to walk in balance so that you're not hypersensitive with regards to being like paranoid about people's intentions and all those kind of things. Because when you come into the awareness that more people than you initially realized actually are liars and are very selfish and they have bad intentions, and you want to be guarded, it's like it can really kind of rock your world. So it's about coming into this state of balance where you feel comfortable that you are protecting yourself and operating guarded, but not like in a paranoid way. You see what I mean? Or a negative way where you're just lumping everybody, all of humanity, into this same like seeing everyone through the same perspective. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's making sure that you can truly enjoy life and have some good times without being suspicious all the time. You know what I mean? So it's like finding that balance and understanding how God's design, and again, apply your own lens to everything I say so that you can get a beneficial message for yourself. That's what I always encourage you to do, because my goal is to always get the wheels turning. Okay, so through my lens, I'm seeing this message that came to me today that I'm going to share with you through the overarching theme that God's design of the human mind works in such a way that it's so fine-tuned that it helps us to see the fruit that a tree bears. So I just encourage you, if you feel called, to grab a pen and a notebook or your journal and make some notes, and then maybe later you can go back and review and see if there's any other message or another layer of the message that surfaces for you. And so the title, and I'm not sure yet if I want to use this for this video, but the title that came to me for this video is The Irony of Destiny. And this is going to become evident as we move through the material, why that title came to me, right? And so I'll start by sharing something just kind of funny. I actually just went shopping at Walgreens, and I love Walgreens. And they have one day, this is not today, but a few weeks ago, the one that I went to didn't have any of the Q-tip brand of swabs, cotton swabs, right? And you know that it's one of those things where it's like, you know, the brand itself started out like monopolizing the market and what they were making. So instead of people calling them cotton swabs, a lot of times you'll hear people just call them Q-tips, right? And so it's really interesting, but it reminds me of like bleach versus Clorox. Clorox is a brand of bleach, but people say Clorox, you know, like synonymous with the product itself. It's just one of those things. And what's funny is it truly does give you the perception, well, that must be the best right there. So a few weeks ago, this Walgreens I was at, they didn't have any Q-tips. They had a different brand of what I call Q-tips, which are really cotton swabs. It was the store brand. It was a Walgreens brand. Turned out I like them a whole lot better. And it's funny because you get to noticing the nuances. It's like, okay, well, the Q-tip brand swabs are more fuzzy, and those are great, like if you're detailing your car, like if you're cleaning out your vents and stuff, to grab all the, you know, all the little nooks and crannies of your car when you're detailing it on the inside. It kind of just gets all the dust and grime and dirt out better if you have a fuzzy cotton swab. But then if you're using it in your ear, I don't personally like the fuzzy ones, because they can actually come off easier and get stuck in your ear, and that's not good. So the Walgreens brand Q-tips are or cotton swabs are not as fuzzy at all. So those are great, you know, for cleaning your ears. So it's like My point is, it's like, as you come into this awareness and you want to find that balance, it's like you have to understand when you're fine-tuning your system of discernment, your internal system of discernment, where you catch red flags. It's like you have to understand all the nuances, and that can make your head spin sometimes, but they're important. And so I advise you, this is what I try to do, to intentionally take time, however often, you know, you decide for yourself. It might be daily, it might be, you know, a couple times a week or whatever it is, but if you intentionally take the time to really sit with all the wisdom that you've come across and experienced and gained, and you trying to intentionally pull the understanding out, it's kind of like, for me, I've decided I don't want to put all that understanding, all of it, in this big heavy backpack and just lug that around everywhere I go. It's like this heavy load now that you're bearing, you know, coming into this understanding. I think I misquoted a Bible verse. I think it was in my video yesterday, where it's like, the more wisdom you get, it's like it increases suffering. I think it says it increases sorrow. So it's like, it can certainly color your view of life, your lenses, if you're just walking around with every bit of the understanding that you pulled from a session of just trying to understand some things. If you're trying to carry that with you everywhere, it can feel heavy, and it can kind of be a dark cloud over a beautiful day, you know? So you don't want that. So what I encourage you to do is just intentionally have time set aside where you truly do a deep dive to sharpen your discernment. But then when you walk away from that session, you're only going to carry particular points that you consciously and intentionally pull from, like main points that you pull from this session, this deep dive session, right? So in other words, you don't want to be navigating your whole life just swimming in the deep waters all the time, because that's, you know, it needs to be like in sessions. It just kind of makes life feel a little bit more lighthearted and easier. The load's not as heavy to bear, right? It's like laying it down, and it's still there and you have it, but you're not operating with it. So and you're gonna see, like I did, how the irony of destiny, all due to God's great design of the human mind, how that's going to work in our favor, so that it allows us to rest in Him, rest in His great design, and let it work to our benefit. So let me just share a quote with you that I came across. It says, "A person often meets his destiny on the road he took to avoid it." And I thought, wow, you can sit with that right there, and that was pretty enlightening to me. And that's by John de la Fontaine. And you know, there's a lot of different ways you can see this quote, but I'll share with you one that's kind of relevant to the message today, which is, "A liar's attempts to cover their tracks actually keep them perpetually stuck in making themselves who they are over and over and over and over." It's like getting deeper into the hole, right? And so this is where you can, you know, just to keep yourself in balance and to stay lighthearted in your mind and not get too bogged down with the heaviness of this stuff, you can think about like covering your tracks. Like a healthy person's not going to have a need for that, right? Unless, let me share this with you, something I do, you might enjoy trying this out for yourself. Unless it's like well-meaning. For example, the only time I feel like covering one's tracks is a good thing is like when you do like I do, and you keep a little container of waterless car wash with you so that after a long trip or you know, you get to a destination where you've driven a lot and your car's, you know, got bugs all over the windshield and the grill, and it's very dusty from going through all these different environments. You can just whip out your microfiber cloths and your waterless car wash, and you can spray it down and wipe it down. It looks like new, right? So in other words, it doesn't look like, you know, you just went through all the stuff that you did. So that's a healthy way to cover your tracks, right? Your car looks brand spanking new. And I love it. I just started doing that recently, and I love it. I love it. But it's a whole lot easier than the way I used to spend hours detailing my cars. And I've always loved Jeeps, and I got my first one, I think I was 21 when I got my first one, and that's what I would do. I'd spend hours every week with my Q-tips detailing it and all that. Well, you know, life sometimes gets busy, and you can't get down to that level. And so I'm sure the 21-year-old version of me, if she could see the 40-something version of me now, she'd be proud. She'd be proud. She would see how, okay, it's a little sloppy trying to keep up, you know, your car as clean as you once did, but at least you're making an effort. So that's the healthy way to cover your tracks. Otherwise, covering one's tracks is not a good thing. And it's something that we can observe and can be an indicator of someone who is actually lying. It's just learning and fine-tuning how to catch that, right? So this is where God's design is beautiful. There's an old song that came out back when I was younger that was really very much liked by my generation. It's around, I don't know if it's when I was in high school or what, but it's by Alanis Morissette. He was a very popular musician back when I was in high school and college. And it says, one of the lyrics of her song says, life has a funny way of sneaking up on you. And then it ends with, life has a funny way of helping you out. And it's all about irony. You know, I think she says, isn't it ironic? And so, because she's singing about, you know, it's like rain on your wedding day. I can't remember all the lyrics in her song. But essentially at the end, like I said, she says, life has a funny way of helping you out. And so I'm coming into the understanding that God's design of our psyche, which includes an unconscious portion, is what can help honest people detect liars. And it also keeps you humble. It also keeps you humble when you're a good person and you're an honest person, because we can all act from conditioning and unconscious belief structures and incorrect paradigms and stuff like that. We can all act from that, and when we become conscious of something that doesn't resonate with, like, why did I just say that, or why did I just do that, it's like you can tell right then an honest person is going to be caught off guard. They're going to apologize and say, I don't know why in the world I did that. And then it gives you something to work on and to dig and figure out, like, where something came from. Where did a thought come from? An honest person's going to react like in that manner. They may be embarrassed at first and try to, you know, try to figure out on the spot, like, you know, what's going on, and stumble over trying to explain. But in doing so, it's going to be an honest pursuit of trying to figure it out in front of you. You see what I'm saying? So kind of like I'm doing right now, trying to, like, how do I explain this difficult concept, right? I'm not trying to pretend like I have it all figured out. I'm just explaining to you all that you can tell when a person's when you learn how to tell, you can tell when a person is being honest or not. And so a lot of times a liar is going to come across so well put together that it's all, you know, a lot of times you can describe them as robotic. I've heard others describe them, a narcissistic person, a liar, a manipulator, as robotic. And I have seen this myself. And they just, it's part of that mask. And they're very careful with their words. So careful that a lot of times they don't say a whole lot because they're afraid something might slip out. And so it's really interesting. And then other times they say too much because they're trying to confuse you. They're trying to, it's like that whole, I think I've seen a couple of those shows like Datelines and stuff where it's showing clips where these detectives are interviewing a guilty person, and they're trying to cover their tracks so much that they're just creating this big elaborate story, this alibi that doesn't hold water, as they say. And so it's like that in itself can be a red flag. It's really interesting. But yes, life has a funny way of helping you out. And so Proverbs chapter 4:19 says, the way of the wicked is as darkness. Okay, they know not at what they stumble. So it's interesting because they're literally operating in darkness. We say that they're serving the dark side, or they're operating in darkness, but for themselves, they're also operating in darkness too. And this is what helps us out, is honest people, to see when there's a sign. We may not see the lie itself, but we can see an indication that they're trying to cover up a lie. Okay, so they'll tell everyone that they're one way, but in their attempts to hide their true motives, they don't realize that they are literally operating in darkness. So there's a story I'll share with you. I've told y'all that I've got some experience in management, and there's this this one person that was hired, and they were stealing. And what was interesting is it became apparent pretty quick. They seemed too good to be true to start with. And it's kind of like, okay, we'll give you a chance. We'll give you a shot, you know, and see if you really are all that you claim to be. But it was just, you're going to see things like excuses, like needing to go to the bathroom all the time. And maybe that's legit in some people, but maybe it's an excuse for other people. And you're like, what are they really doing during that time? And so come to find out, this person was stealing things from other employees, like purses and stuff, you know. So, but this person really made a great effort to tell everyone they were one way, you know, which was not true, right? They're going to, that's why a lot of times, you know, it's said, you'll hear a lot of people talk about, you know, trusting actions over words, which is so important. But let's go back into the concept of the psyche having layers, right? The unconscious layer. So the point with this, bringing up the unconscious layer of the human psyche, is that we all have gaps in our awareness. We all do, right? These areas that we can't see, these blind spots. And so this is the beautiful design from God himself, because it proves a person's character. And it's what it does it by what a person does. Again, it's those actions. It's like, I believe this is, I pulled this from watching Jesse on Narcissist Chronicles on his channel. He's said several times that it's when someone thinks that no one is watching, that's when you can see their true character, right? So like, for example, when these liars, people living behind a mask, are trying to cover their tracks, they'll not be able to cover everything. It's like the fig leaves, you know, that are just fragile, and they don't fully cover everything. It's kind of like, you know, they're going to eventually not hold up. And so it's like, for example, somebody may forget to close a window, and then the neighbor may hear something they're saying or something like that. So it's like just all these gaps that we all have in our awareness that serve to prove a person's true character. All right. And then there's Dr. Les Carter, he's got a great channel too on YouTube. He helped me out a lot in my early stages of coming into the awareness of how many people out there truly are manipulative. One of his favorite sayings is, he encourages everyone to set your own pace and not to let others set your pace. And I thought that was really good, because, did I skip a page in my notes here? I didn't. Maybe I brought it up later, but essentially, you know, yeah, let me just read my notes. So this is a good example to prove that in moving forward, right, which is what we're doing, we're moving forward, we're leaving toxic situations, environments, and people behind, right? So we want to be guarded in our awareness, but not suspicious of everyone, right? So when you're staying in control of you, or on your own path, in your own lane, you're setting your own pace in that way, right? And then controlling people try to hijack your pace, literally, because they're trying to rush you all the time, which is one way to look at it. Sometimes they make you wait. I've witnessed this myself firsthand, intentionally making you wait and getting you frustrated just to have that power dynamic, to be in control there, having to make you wait, right? So instead of noticing all their tactics and asking why, which means we might find ourselves operating in a mindset of suspicion, right? Alternatively, you could just overlook it all and trust karma completely. Instead of either one of those approaches, what we can do is just take note when we naturally notice things that seem out of place. This is what I have adopted, just going about my life, you know, and just instead of overlooking things that seem odd, I'm just gonna take note of them now, right? That just I naturally notice. I'm not trying to notice anything. It happens, right? Things that seem out of place. It could be comments or behaviors that don't fit the circumstance, okay? Because this may indicate someone's awareness that they just stumbled, okay? And then at that point, you might be able to backtrack and possibly see what it is they could be hiding, okay? So what can this look like? It may be odd emotional reactions, like if you're eating together and there's a tray of food and you happen to go for, you know, the food on this side, and it's and you think, you know, there's like the tongs and you're getting the food over here, they may kind of look like this, or they may, you know, and it's like, what does it matter? It shouldn't matter what part of the tray you pull your food from when everybody's sharing it, right? So that's scary. That's the kind of thing that should really raise a flag. You should notice, because if you've been feeling sick a lot when you're eating around this person, that's something you don't want to overlook, right? They can forget to introduce you to someone. If somebody pops up and they start acting strange, you know, they can change the subject real quick. So essentially it's the areas where they stumble that we can call red flags, right? So it's not only their intentional tactics like circular conversations and gaslighting and all that that's red flags, obviously, but it's also these areas where they stumble. It's kind of like they're sloppy, or they're trying to cover their tracks in some way, okay? So I would just encourage you to include this in your radar, in sharpening your discernment, being able to detect people who may have bad intentions in your circles, in your family, your friend social circle, in a relationship of some kind. Things like alibis, things that seem like an alibi or an excuse, too many details, exaggerated behaviors to make you think they're one way, right, when they're another. You're looking for this kind of stuff that may indicate that they have already stumbled, right, and caught themselves, and they're afraid that you'll find out. So what's the opposite? We're always going to end this on a positive note. What's the opposite of someone living in hiding? it's being transparent. It's being transparent. And yes, so I thought, okay, which means obviously to see through, right? That's the standard understanding of that term, to see through something if it's transparent. It's not opaque. It's the opposite of opaque. I'm looking at my necklace I have here. I've got some opaque beads, and I've got some transparent beads, and so it's where you can see through it a little bit. So there, I looked up the etymology of this word, and it was really kind of beautiful, so I want to share with you. So it pulls from the medieval Latin transparentum and the present participle of transpare, which means to show light through, to show light through. And we know that light is representative of all that is true and good and God and love, which is the opposite of darkness, right? So if we just put our primary focus on the light, right, that's going to help us a lot. Okay, so trans means through, pare, P-A-R-E-R-E, parere, I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. Not only means to appear through, right, to appear, but it also means to submit and obey. So this is right in alignment with humility, right? Obeying, you might say, God's instruction, right? Being honest. And then, of course, this reminded me, trans meaning through, it also means across and beyond, or on the other side, which reminds me of the archetypal symbolism in all these stories of crossing the river. And if you consider the river to represent our unconsciousness, and that we come back in the hero's journey, right, with a boon, then this boon may be something that, and this whole journey may be something within your own psyche where you're making these deep dives into the unconscious part of your psyche, and you're bringing aspects of ourselves back into our conscious awareness. So this is the work of an honest person who wants to learn more and more about themselves, right, and to better themselves. So the challenge is for us to understand that someone can only be transparent about what they're conscious of, okay? And being transparent means explaining yourself well, okay? Versus stumbling over your words. That's another way you might be able to identify someone. So you can be transparent intentionally, right? And then there's people who fake transparency because they are conscious of wrongdoing, and they don't want you to know that they're doing the wrongdoing on purpose. So there's a correlation here between the transparency and consciousness and intention. So that's just something for you to sit with and journal on, okay? So an honest person, when they're transparent, they're going to explain themselves well. They're going to try their best to explain something. That's going to be able to illuminate for you someone who's just piecing together something that's not flowing. It doesn't make sense. It's out of place. It's out of place. It's odd. It catches your attention in that manner, okay? That there may be a hidden intention behind it. Something that's not just coming out for whatever reason. So that's how you're going to catch people when they're stumbling over their words and stuff like that, right? Or they may be exercising the silent treatment or changing the subject. So being transparent means being an open book versus being secretive. So I encourage you to concentrate on healthy, fun, and lighthearted things. I want you to remember the Bible verses that tells us it explicitly says what to think on. Think on these things. Things that are good and honest and true, right? So that should be our focus. But we just want to refine that detection system, right, to protect ourselves. So again, for me, I have added to my detection system to look out for things that just seem odd when I catch them, right? To take note of them and not to just brush it off when I notice. So I just encourage you to keep some key concepts like that. You might think of it like keeping them on standby in your mind, so that you're not carrying around that load of all the understanding that's that's coming together for you. So as you're out there creating good times for yourself and your loved ones, I just encourage you to remember that word, transparency, and to notice where the light is shining through, because those are your people. So I hope you've been encouraged by the message today. I thank you for coming along to listen, and I hope that it got the wheels turning for you. I hope that you have a beautiful day, and I'll see you again very soon.